SFC, and we're going to actually put a decision in our flowchart today. So I'm going to double click it, and that is the opening screen. I'm going to click OK, and now I'm going to maximize it so we can see the entire screen. Rather than build a flowchart from the very beginning, I want to go ahead and open one that's available to you as well. It's called basic.sfc, and it should be on your instructor's website. So we're going to download that and then open it in SFC. So I'm going to click on it and open. And this now is going to save us a number of steps because we've already built this once in the first video. We don't have to build any more to it. So at this point, I can go in and review. I'm going to take a look at the main, and if I just double click on it, I see the dialog box that made that particular object. So if you need to review how this was made, you just double click on it and you can see. I'll click OK. The second item in our flowchart is the explanation of what the program does. And then we've got the first of 4 parts. We have declare variables, input, process, and output. Here's the declare variables. And we're actually going to declare 2 variables, inches and feet. In this particular video, we want to introduce making a decision. So I'm going to take this particular frame, and I'm just going to select it and tap the delete key. And I'll click on this one and tap the delete key. So now I'm going to do the same declaring the variables, the same input, the same processing, and the same output. No. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the processing and the output. They're still going to be there, they're just going to be in a different form. So I'm going to go to the hotspot right after processing, and I'm going to double click it. Our dialog box comes up, and what I want to do is make a double decision. In other words, I want to put an if, then, else, end if statement here. And I'm going to say if the user enters a 0, that's invalid. We can't divide and get an answer. If we put 0 divided by 12, that's invalid. So we want them to put something more than a 0. So we're going to check right here to make sure that they did that. So with my double decision selected, I'm going to click OK. Here's my dialog box. And I want to say check to see if, and then I'm going to say inches is greater than 0. Now I put spaces in there just so you could see them, not necessarily so that they had to be there for syntax. But in this particular case, the select format, I always want to have my true come out to the right if I possibly can. And this time I can, so I'm going to click OK. So now I've got my false on the left and my true on the right. So I actually have all 4 words up here. I've got if inches greater than 0, then, else, and the end if is where that joins back up. Now what happens if this is true? Well, if this is true, then I can take this particular algorithm and I can right mouse and I can cut that out of there. I want it to be part of the decision on the true side. So I'm going to click on this particular hotspot, right mouse, and paste it in there. Oh, that was pretty cool. Cut and paste. Remember how to do that? Okay. So then I want to output, since I've got my algorithm, I've got my output. So I'm still working on the true side. We always work on the true side first. So I'm going to double click. And I need to put a comment here that says output. Oh, wait a minute. I don't need to do that. I can cancel this out because my output comment is right here. So I can do the same thing that I did with the algorithm. I can right mouse, cut, scroll down again, go to the hotspot, right mouse, and paste. And now I've got my output section. So I still got my 4 sections. And I'm just going to output as part of the true side of this decision. So what am I going to output? Well, I'm going to output the same things that I had before. So I'm going to double click here and I'm going to say input output, click OK. And what am I going to input output? I'm going to output the feet that are calculated in my algorithm. So I'm going to output the variable feet. And then, because the number appearing on the screen doesn't mean much, I'm going to double click here and I'm going to give it a label. So I'm going to output again. And I'm going to say output, space, quote, space, feet, quote. And what that does is it's going to put an output. The number is already going to be there on the screen, and it's going to say, okay, output a space and then the label feet next to it. And I'll click OK, and now my positive side is done. If the inches are greater than 0, then this is going to run. The same as it did without checking for 0 on the first video. But what happens if it's false? What happens if they put in a 0? Well, I'm going to go over here to my hotspot and double click, and now I want to output a message saying, hey, wait a minute, you need to put in something besides a 0. So I'm going to input output, click OK, and the message I'm going to output is quote, enter at least 1 inch, close quote. So now I've said you've got to input at least 1 inch for this thing to run. I'll click OK, and now we have a flowchart that shows us how to enter a decision into our programming. And of course, on the right-hand side, we have all the pseudocode necessary for us to see how this runs in words. Now you go try.